Thank you, Marvin, for such a heartwarming welcome. I really appreciate it. And those of you who knew Mr. Alden, he was a blessing to my family, and I love him and miss him today. And so, with that being said, thank you for allowing me to come today to speak about autism. For those of you who don't know about autism, I hope you leave here today with a better understanding and understand the signs and symptoms and what families go through when they have a child who has autism. What is autism spectrum disorder? Let me start by saying what it's not. It's not your typical disorder. We call it autism spectrum disorder because no two individuals present the same. You can have someone with autism on a scale from, we look at it, measure it like from 1 to 10. Some individuals will be on the lower end of performance and others on the higher end. And that's because of the signs and symptoms that they exhibit. Some of the challenges that individuals have were with their social and emotional skills, their ability to communicate, and behaviors that may be repetitive or what some folks feel like may not be appropriate behavior. The learning and thinking and problem-solving abilities of individuals with autism can be from gifted to severely challenged, meaning that some individuals do very well on their own. Others need to have a little bit extra TLC or assistance with their activities of daily living. And many may have some co-occurring diagnosis, such as ADHD or maybe inability to accept certain foods, which would be a feeding disorder. A little bit of statistics for you. It affects about 3.5 million Americans, 1 in 54 children. Now, this is a new statistic that was released by the CDC this March. And you'll see this prevalence number is increasing. 4.5 times more common in boys than girls. I see this in the center when I walk through our clinic. We see several little fellows walking around and not as many little girls. And it's not discriminatory. It's all races and socioeconomic classes. And about half of the children identified with ASD have an average to above average intellectual ability. Now, about 40% of our children are nonverbal, but we like to refer to as preverbal. I'm going to show you in a little bit how children who cannot speak can express themselves. We have other ways to assist them in communicating. Here's the prevalence rate that I was speaking of earlier, and you can see how it's increasing. Now, the prevalence rate has increased substantially, and that's due to better testing and diagnosing of children. And so, which really is our understanding of what autism is. Children with autism are often labeled as having bad behavior. Once we identified it, learned how to treat it, these children can be mainstreamed into schools. Early signs. I'm not going to read all of these to you, just give an example. Think about as a parent or a grandparent, and you have your little one sitting in a carrier, and you know you're making all these crazy sounds, the cooing, the smiling to get the little one to respond to you, to laugh. We do it. And at 6 months, they're grinning and cooing for the first time, and their eyes are following you no matter what you move in front of them. Well, a child who has autism possibly will not do that. They won't follow your hand or the toy that you're putting in front of them, and they won't respond to your interaction. So that is one sign, but usually by age 2 is when they'll be diagnosed, in that the children are not putting together 2-word sentences. So let's talk about some other signs. I spoke to a little bit ago about difficulty relating to others and being labeled. It is a challenge emotionally for individuals to interact with others. Now, some children are able to do some of these things and others aren't. And that goes back to that spectrum that we spoke of earlier. Avoid eye contact and want to be alone. This is initially when children come into our center, and as we're working with them, they won't look at us, and they turn their head, and so we stroke their face and bring them their face, their eyes back to us. And so we do that frequently till they learn that, to look forward for their therapy. Which is very disappointing to a lot of parents is that the children, they may not want to be held or cuddled. They could have delayed language or struggle expressing their needs, their wants. And what we do is we engage and utilize tools to help them. And again, I'll share that with you shortly. Persistent repetition of words. I can speak about this because I see it with a family member's child. A parent gets excited when a child verbalizes something to them. Now, with this echoing effect, I'll say, would you like something to drink? The child will say, would you like something to drink? And mom's all excited, thinking the child, they're engaging in, a good interaction. But in turn, if I look at the child and I say something like, I like the sky, what is a child going to say? I like the sky. So it's not interactive speech. It's something we have to work with them on. And a lot of parents, they feel like, gosh, but they're talking, and they don't understand. And so it's a lot of support for our families in working through some of the symptoms and some of the treatment. Resistance to changes, to minor changes. The other day, we had to change our carpool line. Now, most of you would think, okay, kids are going out one door every day for the past 6 weeks, the same door. No big deal. Let's walk down the hall and go to the other door. Well, it is a big deal. When we knew that when we switched the carpool line, we had to have more support for our children. We go to a different door. We had to reroute them. Some cried, some laid on the ground. It was, you have to realize that a change, it's devastating for them. It was very traumatic for some of them, but we just pick them up. We love them. We bring them to the car, strap them in, and tell them we love them, and we'll see them tomorrow. And we're going to go out the same door tomorrow that you're used to going out of. There, a tendency not to look at objects when you point to them. Repetitive behaviors. Some children, you'll see them waving their hands or flapping. It's a way to calm themselves down. We teach them other measures to calm themselves. A few of the other intense reactions that they have, loud sounds. You see the little one here. We see that a lot. And we work with them so that sounds don't bother them as much. When they first come into the center, when they go into their classroom, we put tennis balls, for instance, under the chairs. Because if you pull them out, what happens? It's like a screeching sound or a scratching on the floor. That can set a child off. It's very disturbing for them. So we gradually move to another room where not all the chairs have that. So we try to, in small incremental steps, normalize them so that they will, when parents bring them somewhere, they fit in. Parents don't want their children to stand out. And so I look at a couple other things and give you guys an example is taste. A lot of our children, we have one little boy who he wanted to eat only foods that were white. We had another one, everything had to be yellow. So food coloring is a good thing, to get them to eat certain things. Textures can be devastating. Think about if you have a couple older kids and you want to go to the beach. Our families can't do that unless we help them with their younger child who may have autism. So what we do is we take little boxes and we fill them with sand, and we start with our fingers. We rub. It may take us a few weeks to really get our hands down in the sand. Then we move to a toe at a time sometimes, and we work through that. And that way this family can have a great experience, good family time at the beach. We do that with feeding too, to try to incorporate different foods, because you think you want to have a family night out to dinner. You can't always with a child that has autism. So families tell us what they like to do, and we integrate it into our therapy so that they can have their entire family go out and have a normal vacation, just a normal weekend. Lights can be devastating, can be torture to some of the kids. We'll start them out in one of our rooms where we actually cover the fluorescent lights, and then we slowly remove that so that the children get used to the light. I want to show you this 1-minute video. This is what it's like to possibly see autism through the eyes of the child, and notice the child's reaction to the light, to the sounds, as mom just tries to get him in one door and over to the other side of the mall.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Take my hand. I'm not naughty. I'm autistic. And I just get too much information.
So as you can see, it was pretty traumatic and can be for some children, the lights, the sounds. What causes autism? There's no known single cause of autism. Studies suggest that maybe it's a combination between genetics and environment. Children with a sibling that have a sibling that has autism are of higher risk of having autism. And it occurs more often with certain genetic or chromosomal conditions. Many studies have shown that there's no link between vaccines and autism, which folks thought previously that vaccines caused autism. With this chart, basically what I wanted to share with you is that there are at least 4,000 children in our Baton Rouge area that have autism. What do you do if you suspect that a child or your grandchild or someone has autism? First of all, talk to the pediatrician. The pediatrician can guide you, make a referral to a pediatric neurologist, a developmental pediatrician, or a psychologist. We currently have 3 psychologists on staff, and that's what they do, is they diagnose children for pediatricians. And it's a very detailed screening process. Treatment plans for ASD, the best thing to do is focus on early intervention. We started with 2-year-olds this last year, and we can see such a difference with the 2-year-olds versus starting a child at 4 years old. You would think walking a straight line can be challenging. Within a few weeks, we had them going. So we know that early intervention works wonders. And the therapy that we have, it needs to be intensive. It needs to be individualized. And we believe in individual and in group therapy. Group therapy mainly for the social skills, because you want your child to be able to be integrated with other kids in a school setting. You know, go to parties, be a normal kid. And so we have an interdisciplinary approach at Emerge, and it's speech, language pathology, occupational therapy, pediatric behavioral services are those of a child psychologist, and applied behavioral analysis is a special therapy for children with autism. And the way I look at things is that, and I say this quite often, is that if a child receives a diagnosis of autism, it's truly a family diagnosis, because in order for a child to be successful, it has to be family-centered therapy, focusing on parent education and coaching in therapy. Hey, I want to show you guys, it's called Augmentative and Alternative Communication. For our children that are nonverbal, and remember I stated that 40% of children with autism are unable to speak, you have to give them a method so that they can communicate and tell you what they want or what they need and how they feel. So this is one of our therapists working with one of the children.
Hi. In the past few weeks, he started to use 2-word combinations to request for eating certain things. So.
Eat grapes.
Yeah, I want to eat my grapes.
And how long has he had the dog?
Since the Christmas time, November, December. And
Read.
you want to read a book?
Eat.
Okay.
Eat.
We can read and eat.
Eat. Eat.
Try again. You're okay.
Up.
You can eat your grapes. You can get up if you need to. You want to get up? Or you want to read?
Eat. Grapes.
So I want to eat my grapes and read. I want to eat my grapes and read. Hey, I want to eat. Eat your grapes. And so I talked to Mom too about a big thing of, he's so good a lot of times at using this that you want to make sure it's not just him and this and you giving always combining the eye contact. And so we talked about holding things to her, to your eye level because you want it to be communicative in multiple ways. And
So you notice she's using positive reinforcement. I would like chocolate, but we use grapes so that, but our kids, we give them toys. We'll let them play a couple minutes with a toy to reinforce that language. I wanted to share with you a brief story. This is one of the talkers that we give to the children. And any of the speech therapy companies in town that work with our type of children can utilize this. It's a basic iPad and you load a special software on it. And just not just for Marge, but any of the speech therapy companies in town, if you have these and iPads, if you clean them out, like the software that you have on them and you want to get rid of them, give it to someone in town so that a child can have it, because this is their only way to communicate. Now, I want to share a story with you guys about one of our children. We had a little one that the family we couldn't sell them on this. We had the mom and dad come to therapy, tell them, this is what he needs. Well, they didn't want to use it. And the little one was real successful at school using it. Well, he got up on Saturday morning. They could not understand what was going on. He tried to tell them something. He cried and all. So the little one, this is what mom finally gave in. She pulled this off the shelf, and this is what he said.
I want Pawpaw.
So he wanted his pawpaw. So what did they do? They called Pawpaw and he saved the day. So we programmed these. If he said he wanted granddad or whatever they call someone special, we culturally, we program these for that family. So one of the things that we at Emerge teach all of our children is, and you guys can relate to this one.
Go Tigers.
So they all do that. So that's a blessing. So let's talk about community support. The Baton Rouge Area Foundation and the Huey and Angela Wilson Foundation in 2014 had some folks come in and they sponsored a study. They basically wanted to do a gap analysis to determine what are the existing services for ASD families of our area, and then make recommendations for other services. What they found was there were a lot of good resources in town. However, there was fragmented infrastructure. So if I was a parent and I had a newly diagnosed child, it was challenging for me to navigate through. The study actually had 25 recommendations that the capital area should undertake, and to basically ensure that families with ASD had access to the right resources. From the recommendations, the Capital Area Autism Network, or CAN, was formed. And there are community stakeholders to implement the study recommendations. We have 5 volunteer task forces I serve on one of these task forces, and it may be good in the future to have some folks from the other task forces come and speak with you about the areas in which they work. But these community stakeholders, we meet twice a year to report updates, and we host a town hall for parents annually. Another one of the recommendations that I said earlier about the fragmentation of services, the study, they were able to get a website for families, and it's called Exceptional Lives. And we refer all of our families who have a child who's newly diagnosed to this website. It helps them locate resources quickly. Every child has to have what's called an IEP, or individualized education plan. It helps them navigate that, the insurance and other services that are out there in the community. And this was truly a blessing for the community, and it was underwritten by the McKays, Matt and Sherry McKay. Treatment options in Baton Rouge. The treatment options in Baton Rouge have grown substantially. However, there are still some gaps. The therapists who provide the actual autism therapy that are BCBAs, we have a limited number of them. We're working with Fran U, and we have developed a program with them. So that partnership is a positive for everyone, not just Emerge in town, so that we can take care of our children. A little bit about the Merge Center. We do, under one roof, are able to apply all the therapy disciplines that I've been speaking about. We're a one-stop shop, and so we're very proud of that. We have some of those highly trained staff. They love our children, and it's really a nice place to be. It really is, because when you see a child progress, a child that is nonverbal, and they start talking, and by the time they've been with us a couple of years, they're producing sentences, and the look on a parent's face the first time the child's able to say, "I love you, Mom or Dad," it's priceless. And it's truly wonderful. We do have a charter school, and we're the first charter school in Louisiana designed for children with autism. It's a very, what we call a less restrictive environment for children, because our goal is not to keep children at our school. As soon as possible, we want to mainstream these children into the school of choice for the parent. And we're excited about this. We're adding a grade each year. We're K through second grade this year. We'll add third grade on next year. And we just moved in May into a new building that is 7,000 square feet. And just really nice. Our children are doing very well. We are up to, last year we had 32 children. We're up to 48 children and growing. So really exciting. Any questions? All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it, and I hope this was very informative for you.
Meeting adjourned.